I'm going to talk about Conan. So there's a problem that we had, and Conan is a solution to that problem. Conan is a package manager, and I know what everyone is thinking. Exactly what GNU Radio needs is one more package manager in the mix. And you're right, that's exactly what GNU Radio needs. Imagine that you are a maintainer for a out-of-tree module or a maintainer for GNU Radio, or you're trying to help with GNU Radio. And you, as a modern forward-thinking person, are using Ubuntu 22.04. And everything is working, it passes all your unit tests, everybody's happy. And then you get a message from a user using, say, CentOS 7, which, not end of life yet. And they say, hey, this doesn't build for me. You get really annoyed and frustrated, as you probably should. And you look and you see, oh, well, the version of CMake on CentOS is something that was released, I don't know, maybe like 8 years ago. All of the dependencies are really old and out of date. And as much as I would love to blame the CentOS RHEL people for that, it's not that those dependencies can't exist there, it's just they're not in the package manager. And so maybe you go and you add in some hacks to your CMake file, or you give the person some detailed instructions for how to build Boost from source, which never has any problems. And you try and work through it. A similar problem, which is what we had, is we wanted to deploy some GNU Radio on a ARM v7 device. And there are some libraries where you need some super secret extra flags when you compile it. And if you go through enough message boards, you'll find someone saying, oh, yes, just add this flag to the GCC line and it will work. And it's a lot of time and effort to get all of that going. So Conan attempts to solve this by making it easy to run the exact same code with the exact same dependencies on different architectures and different OSs. It also works for Windows and Mac. It is not a magic panacea. You still have to make it work in all of those cases, but it is a way of trying to manage that madness. So I told you I put a lot of time into these slides. So here's kind of a diagram without arrows because I didn't have time for that, of the gist of how Conan works. So you start with a recipe file, and this is just like Conda, Debian, or CentOS, or whatever package manager you're using. There's some file that says, here is how you build a package. The Conan file is going to tell you how to build a package for all of these cases. And the vast majority of what you have in there is going to be agnostic to how you're building it, but it does allow for you to have specific instructions for if you're on Windows or Mac. You are going to define a set of profiles, and the profiles can define a lot of things. If you're cross-compiling, which compiler you're using, the architecture. So I put up a handful of examples here, but there could be a wide variety of profiles you use. So you may have Linux using GCC 9 on an AMD 64, which is just your standard Intel chip. You may have ARM v7. You could be doing Windows with MinGW. You could be cross-compiling for Android. And so these profiles are just a description of the settings and the tool set that you're using to build that recipe. And then you can build one at a time, or if you're using a CI system, you can build multiple jobs for each one, or sorry, one job per profile. You can build all of these packages. And then it will eventually get stored into Artifactory, which I'll talk about in a minute. But what's nifty about this is all of the packages are built using the same recipe. And so when I say that I depend on this version of Boost, or I'm using this version of CMake, it doesn't matter that CentOS 7 ships with a completely different version. if there's a Conan package for CMake, which there's over 1,000 supported packages in there, so most of the dependencies of GNU Radio are already in there, then you will use the version that was specified, not what was installed on your system. And so for us, we've got profiles for the different architectures that we're using. We're only using Linux, but we create these different profiles, we build the different packages, and then we know it's going to work and run in the other places. And it has made integration onto different systems, in particular the embedded ARM v7 device, much, much easier and much more manageable. Important note is that Conan is free, open source software. I file bug reports. I've been able to look at the source code and work with some of the people there. It's really nice. Artifactory is free for Conan, but it's a very powerful tool that they want to charge you lots of money for. Unless you're an open source project, then they'll give it to you for free. Artifactory is a place for storing artifacts, which in this case are the GNU Radio packages. One thing that I think could be really cool for GNU Radio would be there's tons of out-of-tree modules, and there's can't remember the name, the GRCon or PAN. What was that? The CGRAN. There we go. Where you can get links to the different out-of-tree modules that exist. With software like Artifactory, you could allow the other open source developers to put their packages in, and each of those packages would have a recipe. So it would say that this is the version of GR whatever that works against GR10, or sorry, 3.10.4, or any 3.10, 3.10.x. And so you'd be able to see not just what out-of-tree modules exist, but what versions each of those support. And so this is something that we've been working on for not around the clock for the past year, but off and on for the past year. What we found is that the vast majority of GNU Radio is really easy. It's just when you get into really Qt and the GTK stuff that it gets to be much more difficult. I can install everything but those without having to install any system drivers, any system packages. And it's just using Conan packages for everything, which makes it something that's very easy and portable to use across everything else. And there are ways so you can use the system package manager to get drivers that you need. It's just when you get into, when you use Qt, it just feels more complicated to me. But it is something cool that we hope to be able to open source. Right now we're contractors, so it's been paid for by contract dollars, and so we can't release it at this time. But we're hoping that when we get it all buttoned away, that we'll be able to release it to the community and make it something that is useful and makes people's lives easier. So, thanks.
Thank you.